Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Vries. 59 years ago, almost to the minute, I birthed a little girl called Elizabeth Mary Aurelia Ridgway. She decided to come into the world 3 weeks late, and after 24 hours of labor, she was my firstborn child. And they say when a Scorpio is born, that within a year before or after there is a death in the family. Well, 11 months before Gigi was born, my mother passed of lung cancer. And I eloped with my husband a month before she died. And was pregnant with Gigi 2 months later, or 1.5 months later. And I felt her union with me when I first went into the conception of her. I could feel her. I could feel the life force around me. And I was 23 years old and newly married. I had 2 stepchildren, and this little girl came into the world. My family had kind of disowned me for eloping with a German ex-Luftwaffe pilot, whom I married out of sheer passion and laughter and akin to my soul in so many ways, as far as understanding a passion for life in all forms. He fell in love with me. I was riding across a field and I had the front of my hair bleached. My hair was very dark, ash brown. And I had the front bleached. I was smoking a cigarette and I was in a full gallop. And he and I fell in love. And that was it. So Gigi was conceived very quickly. And while she was in my tummy, I was still riding horses. In fact, I had the brakes on with a little string from the loop of the buttonhole so that I could ride longer. And I was quite foolhardy then, quite daring, quite wild. I guess I am still a bit the same. And I actually jumped a jump on an Irish Olympic horse that was about 6 feet when Gigi was in my tummy at 3 months of age. So Gigi rode before she was born and felt my passion for horses and inherited the same absolute passion for creatures of all sorts. She was born 9 pounds. And my parents, my mother dead, my family far away, having partially disowned me, my husband at work. I lay in the hospital room all by myself, examining this magical, wondrous creature. When I looked down into her face, she looked exactly like my mother who had passed. Same eyes, the same smile, the same shape of face. So she was my firstborn. Time went by. 13 months later, her brother joined her. They were like 2 just joined at the hip. They adored and loved each other as children and supported each other in what was quite a volatile household. From the time she was little, she wore a ghastly shade of pink that she was mad about and insisted on every time we went to the clothing store. So she would dress in this pink with her pale white skin and think that she looked absolutely gorgeous. Then she decided she was always a bit of a showman, had tremendous acting capabilities, but she was never a liar. She was never inauthentic. She never made up lies to get out of trouble. She always faced me head on with her beautiful sea green eyes and said, yes, I did it. But as far as weaving tales and telling stories, she had a phenomenal imagination. And George would lie in bed with her at night, and she would tell him long tales of magical stories. She was a natural storyteller. When we went to church. My husband was Catholic. I wasn't, but I became Catholic simply for a family to be of one focus. I was always a free spirit and never followed the rules of any religion. I always felt that the kingdom of God did lie inside me, and that was where my connection was to spirit. So I brought my children up going to Catholic schools and going to Catholic church, but utter free spirits. And if something bothered them, I say, well, you don't have to accept that. You think for yourself, you feel for yourself, you find your own connection with spirit. So they were, from childhood, free spirits under the auspices of the Catholic Church. So Gigi developed a phenomenal love for Mother Mary. Because she loved me so much, we just had this exquisite bond from the first moment. She related the religious aspect of God to a woman. Her father was a bit of a rough guy. He had very elegant, very honest, authentic man, but in deep PTSD. So the children saw those outbursts and it at times frightened them. But he was a good man in his soul and a great father in many ways. When she was age 4 or 5, I found a lump in my breast. And they wanted to do an hour mammogram, and my husband, being a deeply intuitive man, said, no, you're not doing that. I have a feeling that would cause a problem. So I did nothing. I came home. It was in my left breast. She heard me talking to my husband about it. I didn't tell my children. I didn't want to worry them. But she heard, and her little Scorpio ears and detective soul were at the door listening. And she went back to her room, and I heard her door shut, and I thought, oh no, I hope she didn't hear anything. And I peeked through the crack in her door, and I saw her on her knees, this little tiny girl in a pink pajamas, looking up at her picture of the Holy Mother. And she said, please, please, never take my mama first. Never take my mama. Please help my mama. Heal my mama. I have never heard such a fervent prayer in my life. So innocent, so wholeheartedly surrendering with pure faith. Within a week, the lump was completely gone. And I went to her room and I said, Gigi, I just want to let you know I'm completely healed and I want to thank you. And she goes, oh, you heard me. I didn't want you to know that I knew I didn't. She always didn't want me to worry. Even in a situation like that, she didn't ask for comfort. She wanted to protect me, which I find just amazing. When Gigi was 9, when she was 5, she started to ride horses. I put her in front of the saddle in front of me when she was 2 and 3, and I put George in front of the saddle and we'd ride. So they rode almost before they could walk. And so she adored horses. We got her a beautiful Arab horse that was the size of a pony when she was age 6. And she was madly in love with that horse and passionate about horses and a phenomenal horsewoman. But that's only part of this story. We rode together. George started to ride. He rode beside me. Andre was not yet on the scene. We go to the beaches, we gallop in fields. We were wild Indians, which took out the pressure of our home life, what we're going through there, which I won't go into. So at age 9, I was praying. I was pregnant with Andre, and the doctor said he's pressing on an artery, and you may not live through this pregnancy, and we think you should get rid of him, have an abortion. So I went up in the hills, because for myself, that was an inconceivable choice. You don't judge other people that have made that choice, but for myself, it was not an option. And my guides came to me and they said, he will be the one you're with at the very end of your life. You must have this baby. We will protect you. And then they said, we want to tell you something. Your little girl will not be with you throughout your whole life. When she's older, she will pass before you. And we want to prepare you for that because your bond is of one soul. You are from the same soul. She is part of the stream of energy that from which both of you were conceived. And I was like, oh my God, I'm supposed to have this one baby, and I'm supposed to realize it, the other. And they said, do not tell anyone this. So I didn't tell anyone. Then, around age 27, she was age 27. We'd been together, inseparable, riding, training, abused horses, etc. And they came to me again and they said, we just want to tell you that your daughter will not be with you for more than about 15 years, maybe 20 years. And then she'll come home to us. Again, I was like, oh my God, it was real what they told me before. And I didn't tell anyone except for one friend because I just couldn't hold it not to tell one friend. I didn't tell my husband. I didn't tell George or Andre. And here we were still riding, supporting the family through taking abused horses, turning their lives around and reselling them. And she came down to Los Angeles to ride, and she became a phenomenal rider. She had won at Spruce Meadows top honors at age 12 for 18 and under. She was phenomenal. She was considered to be one of those rare beings that became part of the horse, but it wasn't that made her such a great rider. She had an indomitable courage, and it wasn't that she had no fear. It was that she was able to conquer fear, to conquer the deepest wells of fear that came up in her throughout her entire life. I don't think I've met someone with as much courage as she had. So that was good because it held her in good stead for what was to come in the future. So when she came to Los Angeles, she was riding, living with her boyfriend Mark, who was an absolutely wonderful man, looked out for her with his whole heart. And I came down to join her when I lost a very large art deal that I'd been in Europe for a year trying to close it, and the whole thing fell apart, and I was with no money, and Andre followed me down, and George, who had been modeling in Europe, came to Los Angeles. So here we all were. I'm sorry, this is a bit long, but getting to the part that really matters. She said she was part-time working in a corporate office. She said, I can't stand it. Everyone is just so damn materialistic and fake and climbing the ladder and climbing over each other. She said, I gotta do something real. So she said, I'm going to look in the paper and I'm going to find a volunteer organization. This was exactly when AIDS broke out in Los Angeles, and people were terrified of AIDS. They thought it was airborne. They thought it was communicable just by touching someone. So they had these AIDS patients at a hospital in North Hollywood, and they were all segmented off. And if you went in the room, you were supposed to wear a gown and mask and rubber gloves. And she showed up there. And I said, I'll go with you, Gigi, let's do this. So we went there, and the minute she got in the room, she threw off the gloves, threw off the outfit, threw off the mask, and took this young man who was so thin in her arms. She said, you need to be touched, and I'm here to give you love. And she also had the most incredibly wild sense of humor. And she got them all laughing and got them all filled with joy. And I came as a healer, supporting her devotion to these men. There were 18 of them. They were mostly gay men from the streets of Los Angeles, male prostitutes, drug users, and one had gotten AIDS through a blood transfusion. So here we were with 18 men, and my other two boys said, we want to come too, we want to help. So Andrea would come in and play the guitar, and George would come in and give them healings and play his guitar and talk to them about spirit. So here I was with my little family at an AIDS hospice where they were being given 47 pills a day. They were treated like guinea pigs, pariah. I brought my vegetable juicer and I started making a vegetable juice and throwing away some of the pills, and they started to get better and stronger. And the head of AIDS LA came in and blasted me, made me take the juicer out of the hospice, and they were all cheering for me. Here they all were, these little guys in wheelchairs with arms about this big around, cheering for our efforts to give them help. Most of these fellows had been on the streets. They didn't even know what a home was. So to be in an AIDS hospice to them was a home. This is the first bed they'd had where they could actually know that's their bed and they get a full meal given to them. So for them, this was a step up. I thought it was horrifying what they were doing to them, but I wasn't going to debate it with them because that was their life, their choice. So we stayed there every night for 4 hours, my girl leading the way with such valor and such laughter and such passionate devotion. And we started to bring some of them home to Mark's place and lie them under the rose bushes so they could see the sky and they could see the heavens and they could smell the roses. And we'd put big blankets down and Gigi would take off their diapers and let them lie in the sun, let the sun get on their body. And we had these amazing experiences. I could write a book just on that period with Gigi. My boys came regularly, but Gigi was the one that was there every day with me. I look at her, I was just in awe of her. I thought, where did this child come from? This child with this heart that encompassed, just took them in her arms and just sang to them and held them. I've never felt so much humility that a child like that had chosen to come through my body. So there were many, many thousands of stories I could tell you about Gigi because we were soulmate friends and we had our own secret language. We had words we used, and we even had a game we had that was quite funny. If I was going out with a man, I would bring him home. We'd do the Gigi test because Gigi was extraordinarily magical and beautiful and 20 years younger, 22 years younger. So we would bring them in the house and be hospitable and laughing, two Scorpio women, mother and daughter, and I would say, okay, I'd say to Gigi a secret word, and she'd wink at me, and I'd go out of the room. I'd say, I gotta go to the store and pick up something for dinner. So I'd leave her with the fellow. And we'd go through the Gigi test. And if he tried to come on to her, flirt with her, or be smarmy with her, or try to get into her good graces with a sexual overtone or undertone or whatever you want to call it, that would be noted. And Gigi would say when I came back to the drug, good, she'd give me a signal that he had failed the test, or he'd been a perfect gentleman and fatherly to her and realized she lost her father at a young age and wasn't interested in me. He sincerely wanted someone my age, liked my personality, etc. We did it the other way around because Gigi would sometimes date men 10 or 15 years older, and we did the mama test where she would leave and go to the store and the fellow would be with me, and surprisingly several of them failed the test for Gigi. As gloriously, beautifully magical as she was, they had no ethics, no sense of being totally her man. So they would get the signal too, and they were gone. Nothing mattered more than Gigi and I being upfront and authentic with each other and loving each other, and that mattered more than having the flattery or attention of a womanizing man. It's always totally turned me off. So onward to age 44, she's age 44, I'm age 68. And I have a dream. And in that dream, I see her lying in the water like Ophelia, and she's gone, she's died. And I look at her and I go, oh no, it's that time, she's going. This is the time they told me she's going, and nothing happened. I came out of it and I convinced myself that it was just a dream. It was a message that she was going through a metamorphosis. It's just there's a denial part in a mother, no matter what the child has, that they're not dying. So a year went by. She broke up with her boyfriend. She'd put on a lot of weight. And all of a sudden she came to me one day and she said, Mother, and she showed me this huge lump in her right breast that, because she'd been heavy, she hadn't seen it. It had grown so fast and so big, the size literally of an egg. And we went immediately to the doctor, and the doctor sat at a table and said, you've got 18 months to live. And I just lost it. The way it was delivered was so callous and cruel. And Gigi sat there and looked at me, and she said, all right. And we went home, and it was now in her bones. It had progressed that much. And she said, there's only one thing that I've always been afraid of all my life, and that's been to be paralyzed, and I couldn't walk. So I will take the radiation, but I don't want the chemo. I know it's useless, and I know I'll feel disgusting, and I want to live out every minute of my life to the last moment, but I will take the radiation. So she had 52 days of radiation every day when I drove her there, and I took her in. The nurses had come, they go, gee, she's here, and they take her in the back, and they would be laughing and cavorting, and she'd be telling them jokes, and she was just incredible. This is someone that had bone cancer, believe me, that's the toughest one. And we brought her back home. Mark, who was no longer her boyfriend, came over, painted her whole room for her, a beautiful soft blue. My friend Michelle came over, got her beautiful curtains, made the room. She'd never had such a beautiful room because we'd never had much money to spend on our bedrooms. That was kind of the last place our money went. It went on dogs, horse food, rent. We never owned the house. We just rented. So we were always scrambling every month. We had old cars, but we still had our horses because we had a place where we kept them in the back, and we'd go out and we'd buy the grain, we'd buy the hay, we'd clean the stalls. So all it cost us was their food. And she still rode for a little while, but the spine was pretty bad. And so she said to me 2 months before she was diagnosed, she said, I want to have a puppy. She didn't know she was diagnosed yet. And we went to a market, and there was Flower Fairy, this big, little tiny border collie lab cross, most exquisite puppy. And that puppy, 2 months later she got diagnosed, that puppy was with her every second. It was a glorious gift from God, that puppy. So anyway, to cut a long story short, it progressed pretty fast. And we got the hospital bed, and I would hear her in her room at night. She had courage like you could not imagine. I never saw her weeping and wailing, except out of raw pain at times. And I'd hear her in her room walking and walking and walking, and I'd go in her room and I'd say, darling, what is it? And she'd go, I got beyond the pain. I saw a spirit. I moved beyond the pain, Mama. I'm not afraid. So amazing. So amazing. She said, I'm doing this my way. And my way is with courage, not morphine, not pills. I'm doing it my way. So time progressed, and I used to go out every Saturday to garage sales by myself to try to find her something to brighten her face, to make her smile, to make her laugh, something funny. And when she was little, I always got her Raggedy Ann dolls, and I went to a garage sale, and this lady had these Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy that were 3.5 feet high. And I went, oh my God, I got to get those. How much are they? And she said $40. That may not sound like much, but in those days, that was a lot for us. Every penny was going to help her with new vitamins or whatever. It was gone every day. And she said, who are you getting it for? Because these were very special to me. These are my daughters. And I told her the story about Gigi and her rag dolls. And she said, would you do me the honor and take these to her as a gift? Which was pretty amazing. Miracles like that all the time. And so I brought them home, and I said, guess what I've got? And I held up these two, and I put them in the bed, hospital bed beside her, with her arms around them, and she looked up at me. She looked about 5 years old, and she just goes, thank you, Mama. She goes, you know I'm going. I'm not staying. And I said, I know, I didn't want to say to you. And she said, Mama, when I was young, I always knew. I asked God, I asked Mother Mary, please take me first. Take me before my Mama. I want to go. I don't want to be in the earth when she's not here. And she said, I knew I was going first so that you could be here for George and Andre, but also I just couldn't bear it. And I looked at her and I said, darling, I knew that you were going at age 9. She said, I knew then too. I always knew I was going to die young. But she said, what a life I had, and what a family, and what a Mama, and all those horses, and my dog. And she just found joy in everything. And I looked around her room, and all of her possessions were in one little thin closet. And she said, when I go, I want you to tie a ribbon around each thing I own, little things like scarves, a pink necklace, of course it was pink, a jazzy top, sparkly shoes that she'd made, fairy shoes, magic wands that she'd made for the kids. And she said, I want you to put them on a table at my memorial. I want everybody to have a piece of me. Hold on to nothing, she said, except for my mirror I made for you called Angel Wings. And it was strange because that mirror never sold. And her magic wand she made me. And really very little else. Yeah, just give it all away, Mama. Don't hold on to anything. And I said, listen, I want to try, the day she was passing, I said, I want to tell you one thing. And this is love, my friends. This is love. And I want you to remember this when the people around you go. I said to her, Shishi, I want you to go till you have earned the highest realm, the way you've treated the animals, the way you've treated the people in hospice, the way you stood up for them, the courage you've shown, the magical presence you brought to this earth, the laughter that you brought to thousands of people. I said, you're going to go to a high realm, a high vibrational realm. Mother Mary will take you there, I know it. And I want you to promise me, if you go to a place higher than me, you go there, even if I never see you again. I want this for you. I want you to be amongst the holiest of the holy, because that's who you are. And she looked at me and smiled with her cute little crossed over front teeth, and she said, we'll see about that. And and a few hours later, she was now on morphine because the bones were very bad. She had lumps all over her head. It was very bad. I won't go into it all. And then she opened her eyes wide at the very end, very, very end. And I could hear her internally saying to me, Mama, look into my eyes. I'm going to show you where I'm going. And I looked into her eyes, and for 30 seconds, I saw this incredible, magical, light-filled, wondrous joy in her eyes of what she was seeing. I didn't see what she was seeing, but I saw her actual experience of what she was seeing. And it was the greatest gift she's ever given me. I saw her see the divine realms where she was going to be. That was her story, my darling girl. And I want to tell you that she did go to the highest realms, but she's with me always. She's always with me. She hangs out when I'm doing the gardening. She hangs out when I'm in a healing. She's in the room. When I'm giving a reading, and the woman will say, there'll be a question, and the woman will say, well, is my husband cheating on me? And I'll hear this raucous laugh. And she'll go, you can't tell her the truth, Mama. You're not allowed to spy on other people, but we know what's going on. It was sort of like when we were young and we were bringing the guy home and having a secret joke about it. And I'd have to find a way to express to that person how did they feel about it and draw out the truth another way, because I never have used my readings in a way that would be revealing somebody else's life to somebody that is nosy and wants information. So that's violating the ethics of what I do. So she's with me in every reading, laughing, bringing joy, bringing wisdom. It was someone I was going out with online for quite a while that I was crazy about. And she said to me, Mama, don't trust him. He's not telling you the truth. And the truth was revealed later, and she and her brother helped reveal it. But what I'm trying to say is, she's never stopped protecting me. She's never stopped. Thank you.